Week 11 kicks off in just a few days on Thursday Night Football with the Patriots going up against the Jets in Foxborough. In today's video, I'm going to prepare you guys for your week number 11 matchups at the quarterback position. We'll be going in depth through every single matchup from Thursday Night Football all the way up until Monday Night Football. And I'll be telling you guys whether I think you should start or sit the quarterbacks in all of those games, as well as where I believe they'll finish by the end of the week. There are two teams on bye this week, the Indianapolis Colts and the New Orleans Saints. Before we can get on into today's video, though, I would like to ask that if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. We begin with Thursday Night Football, the New York Jumbo Jets at the New England Patriots. Now, Drake the Iceman May has been one of the most consistent quarterbacks in fantasy football on a week in and week out basis. Last week up against the Bucs, he was the quarterback 11 with 16 completions on 31 attempts for 270 yards and 2 touchdowns with 1 INT, as well as 7 rushes for 13 yards. He has been a top 12 quarterback now in 7 of 10 games, facing the Jets on a short week at home in the 10th best matchup for quarterbacks. You have to expect that Drake May is going to strike back as a top 12 option like the Empire in Star Wars Episode 5. I got him as a must-start top 5 option for me on the week. Justin Fields was the conductor of the struggle train last week. 6 completions on 11 attempts for 54 yards with 1 touchdown and 1 interception, as well as 7 rushes for 28 yards as the quarterback number 23 up against the Cleveland Browns. Now he is without Garrett Wilson. This is an offense that looks hopeless in terms of the passing attack. Now, we all know deep down that Justin Fields could just randomly score 25 plus fantasy points in any given game. So in the 17th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis, I am not going to rule that out. But based upon what we have seen last week and based upon the wide receiver core, how it's looking without Garrett Wilson, I would not touch Mr. Justin Fields with a 10-foot pole. Now we move to Madrid, Spain, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Set your alarm clock for the Battle of the Ooses. Marcus Mariota and the Washington Commanders at the Miami Dolphins, and Tua turn the ball over. Even if this game is in Spain, it is technically a Dolphins home game. Marcus Mariota has been a top 18 quarterback in 3 of 4 starts this season for the Commanders. Based on the offense not having Terry McLaurin and the team as a whole flopping more than Caleb Johnson's rookie year, it is hard to get truly excited about playing Mariota. Quarterback 13 last week up against Detroit, 16 completions on 22 attempts for 213 yards and 2 touchdowns with 5 rushes for 22 yards. The Dolphins are the 8th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis, so while the matchup is enticing, Mariota certainly really isn't. He is just a fringe quarterback to start for me in the quarterback 16 to 18 range. Tua turn of the ball over was the man on the label of the best ravioli can, because bro was Chef Boyardee up against the Buffalo Bills in a game where the Dolphins slung out back shots for 4 straight quarters and had me feeling nicey as a Dolphins fan. I know our team may absolutely suck, but at least we beat the Buffalo Bills. 15 completions on 21 attempts for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns with 2 arm punt interceptions. Tua may have been the most fraudulent quarterback 18 finish as he scored just 12.8 fantasy points, but hey, we will take it. Ultimately, most weeks, Tua will be a guy that is knocking on the door of being start worthy as like a QB2 option close to the top 18, right? But won't perform well enough to get you really over the hump. And in a game where I expect Achane to run wild, no need to start Oos here in the 5th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. In a 2-quarterback league, super flex league, Tua is definitely fine due to how great this matchup is. Now we move to the 1 p.m. slate over on Sunday, the Carolina Panthers at the Atlanta Falcons. Now, if Bryce Young and Lily Phillips were in a dick-sucking competition, I am not even sure that Lily Phillips would win that. Bryce Young has played in both of the last 2 games with 100% of the snaps and scored less than 7 total points. Last week up against the Saints in a mid-range matchup for quarterbacks, he was 17 of 25 for 124 yards and an interception with 2 rushes for 6 yards. Just 2 games of 9 inside of the top 12. No way you are playing him in the 26th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. Michael Penix has been incredibly consistent at being inconsistent this season. We have seen 4 of 8 games with under 13 fantasy points. Last week in Germany, up against the Colts, he was 12 of 28 for 177 yards and a touchdown with 1 rush for -1 yards. So with his inconsistencies and this being the 23rd best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis, I would prefer to leave him on my bench. Now we move to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Buffalo Bills, potentially the game of the week. Baker Mayfield got his swagger back last week up against the Patriots after 2 slip-ups prior to the bye, where he was playing like a fucking blind man. In their 23-28 loss to the Patriots, he was 28 of 43 for 273 yards and 3 touchdowns. Facing the Buffalo Bills is a rough matchup on paper, as they allow the 30th most points to quarterbacks on a per-game basis, but I expect this game to be a high-scoring, tit-for-tat affair. This game, according to the Vegas lines, have it projected at a 48.5 point over-under. So while the matchup does scare me a little bit, Baker Mayfield, outside of those, couple slip-up games recently, has been incredibly consistent. I will bang the drum for him as a low-end quarterback 1, despite the fact that the Buffalo Bills got taken to Suplex City by the Miami Dolphins last week, and Josh Allen looking like trash for a majority of the game. In garbage time, he arose like the Undertaker. 28 completions on 40 attempts for 306 yards. Dale with 2 touchdowns on 1 interception. I just realized that if he threw for 306 yards, that wouldn't be Dale. It would be 305. So let's just pretend I didn't say that. 1 INT with 4 rushes for 31 yards and a fumble on the world's longest quarterback sneak as the quarterback 8 in Miami. The Buccaneers are the 15th best matchup for quarterbacks. Josh Allen is a must-start quarterback every single week, regardless of the matchup. 3 straight games with 20-plus fantasy points in 7 of 9 games inside the top 12. He is a must-start top 3 quarterback for me on the week. Now we move to the battle of the Oilers, the Houston Texans at the Tennessee Titans. Now, CJ Stroud is still in concussion protocol as of Monday yesterday, so his availability for Sunday's action up against the Titans is 100% up in the air. Last week, we saw Davis Money Mills, the giraffe man himself, lead a miraculous comeback up against the Jaguars as the quarterback 1 with 27 completions on 45 attempts for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns with 1 INT, as well as 3 rushes for 20 yards and a touchdown. He truly pulled a rabbit out of the hat in that game, and I do not believe that he could do something like that again, even in the 13th best matchup for quarterbacks here. So I would sit him. If Stroud is in, I still don't feel great about him and would prefer to sit him as well. In a 2-quarterback league, if Stroud is in, you definitely would feel better, in my opinion, playing him than a guy like Davis Mills. Honestly, we are in week 11. You already know you aren't starting Cam Ward. There are some positives in his game, but as a whole, this team is such a fucking dumpster fire that I don't think we'll see a big game out of him until next season, and I would be genuinely perplexed if he was even just like a top 20 quarterback this week in the worst matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. Now we move to the Chicago Bears at the cold-like Minnesota Vikings. Now, Caleb Williams has been hotter than a pizza roll that you decided to eat straight out the oven, and it completely burns your mouth and your tongue and everything. It's just the worst scenario ever. I actually did that earlier today, and it's not fun. So over the last 2 weeks, he's been on fire, NBA Jam style. Back-to-back games in easy matchups and back-to-back smashes. Quarterback 1 in week 9 at Cincinnati, and last week, quarterback 4 up against the G-Men. 20 of 36 for 220 yards passing last week with a touchdown, as well as 8 rushes for 63 yards and a touchdown. Now, while these last 2 games have been amazing, it is important to kind of zoom out when you're discussing Caleb Williams. 5 straight matchups that are ideal, and 3 of 5 games is a top 10 quarterback. The other games, he was outside of the top 18. He now has a mid-range matchup up against the Vikings. I like to stay in the heat in fantasy football, so when a guy like Caleb Williams is on fire, he's playing well, I want to continue to start him, so he belongs as a low-end quarterback 1, but I still definitely don't think that we should just not question how Caleb Williams has been playing. There are still definitely question marks with his game. JJ McCarthy looked like a two-pack of ass last week up against the Ravens. He still had a solid fantasy showing as the quarterback 14, but the 9 alter ego was definitely left at home. 20 of 42 for 248 passing yards with 1 touchdown and 2 INTs with 5 rushes for 48 yards. Now, I love this spot because it makes me happy up against the Bears, as it is the 3rd best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. So if you have to play McCarthy, go ahead. And if he's your QB2 in a super flex or 2 quarterback league, you feel great. But in a 1 quarterback league, I'd prefer to look elsewhere. Now we move to the Green Bay Packers at the New York Football Giants. But before we break down this game in depth, as well as the rest of the games on the Week 11 slate, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends, our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description, you receive a free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus funds, as well as you play $5 in the pick'em, you receive an additional $100 in bonus funds or in bonus entries. How does the pick'em work? It's incredibly simple. You make at least 2 picks on the players higher or lower. If those picks hit, you get paid. If you do multiple other picks, then the payout will be higher, but all of the picks need to hit. Make sure you guys do check that out. Promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. Now, Jordan Love is in a great spot to succeed this week in the 6th best matchup for quarterbacks. The problem is Jordan Love more than likely won't need to do much here in order to actually win the game, with Jackson Dart more than likely sidelined. Quarterback 24 in back-to-back games, and both of those games were losses. Even when the Packers have these triumphant victories, even when the Packers are winning very clearly, putting belt to ass, which could easily happen here when you have a team like the Packers that is constructed how they are, with, a bunch of not so great wide receivers, with an amazing running back and an amazing defense. Love doesn't need to throw a boatload of yards and throw multiple touchdowns for the Green Bay Packers to come out of this game victorious. So while this matchup on paper is great, he is a fringe start in the quarterback 15 to 18 range as quarterback 2. And before people get all tilted about me due to how I talk about Jordan Love, the guy has just 2 of 9 games inside of the top 12 and 4 of 9 games with under 14 points. I understand that Jordan Love is a great quarterback. I understand why Green Bay Packers fans are excited to give this guy the Gawk 9000 special week in and week out. I think he's a great quarterback, but in this system, he doesn't need to go crazy to win games. So he's just not a guy that I am excited to start. Mr. Unlimited, with Jackson Dart suffering a concussion up against the Bears last week and with multiple other scares dating back to the preseason, the safest assumption here would be that he is not good to go on Sunday, thus elevating Russell Wilson into the quarterback 1 seat. And even though he gives them 0 juice and plays like you're just watching fucking paint dry, for some reason, they still keep rolling him out there. Now, maybe them firing Brian Daboll, fires them up a little bit, but this is the 25th best matchup for quarterbacks. I wouldn't expect things to miraculously change here. And even if they went to Jameis Winston, the crab stealer, goat, Jameis Winston, or was it lobsters, whichever the fuck it was, whatever sea creation that was. I love Jameis Winston. I think he's a very fun quarterback to watch, but at the end of the day, up against the Packers, that is a resounding fuck no, baby. I don't think we're magically going to get a game like Tommy DeVito, the Italian Stallion, had up against the Packers a couple of years ago. Now we move to the Cincinnati Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Joe Flacco, geriatric Joe Flacco, has been a top 7 quarterback in 3 of 4 starts as the Bengals starter and has scored 18 plus points in all games with the team. Prior to the bye against the Bears, Joe Flacco went nuclear. He got the codes, and he hit the fucking button as the quarterback too. 31 completions on 47 attempts for 470 passing yards with 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in a loss as the Bengals defense can't stop anyone. Last time out up against the Steelers in week number 7, he was the quarterback 6 with 31 completions on 47 attempts for 342 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. I think he can easily give us a repeat of this showing here, as the Steelers allow the 7th most points to quarterbacks on a per game basis. He is a top 10 quarterback for me in the low-end quarterback 1 range. Now, as I said when we were talking about Joe Flacco half a second ago, the Bengals defense cannot stop anyone. Even Aaron Rodgers could hit them with the power of an uppercut by Joshua Van. Last time out in Cincy, he was the quarterback 7 with 23 completions on 34 attempts for 249 yards and 4 touchdowns with 2 interceptions. While in a wet dream matchup, Rodgers still does feel risky. Right? I still think deep down, you don't feel the best based on all the games he's had this season, just 2 games inside the top 12. The upside is very clearly evident here. He belongs as a high-end quarterback number 2. Now we got the LA Superchargers at the Jacksonville Jaguars in Duval. Justin Herbert, the pervert, jumped into the cold tub last week up against the Steelers after three straight top 4 showings. He was the quarterback 17 last week on Sunday Night Football. 20 completions on 33 attempts for 220 yards and a tug in a very uninteresting low-scoring game with 5 rushes for 19 yards as well. The Jaguars are the second best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis, so while not having Joe Alt reeks to high heaven for the offense of the LA Superchargers, I feel like a bounce back is inevitable as a top 6 quarterback in the must-start range. Trevor Lawrence cooled off last week in the worst matchup for quarterbacks up against the Houston Texans, 13-23 for 158 yards and a touchdown with 1 INT as well as 5 rushes for 35 yards in a collapse. You cannot lose a game where you are winning by that much. That was a disgrace type of game for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Prior to last week, he was a very consistent top 14 option in 4 straight games. Problem is here, this isn't the type of game where you see Trevor Lawrence rise up like The Undertaker, right? And come back and bounce back, have that big game. The Chargers are the 4th worst matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. So while I do think there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow here, like he's the Lucky Charms man, brighter days are ahead. This isn't that game. He is a clear sit. Now we move to the Seattle Seahawks at the Los Angeles Rams, the beginning of the 4 p.m. slate. If you guys have enjoyed today's video thus far, hit that subscribe button down below like it owes you some money. Now, despite the Seahawks laying a pipe down to the Cardinals like they were a plumber, winning 44-22, shout out to Drake, that was because the Seahawks defense kept on scoring. Darnold only threw the ball 12 times, 10 of 12, for 178 yards and a touchdown with 1 INT. I expect far more passing in this matchup in what has super high scoring potential. Darnold is a low-end quarterback 1 for me on the week in the 24th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. Even though the matchup may scare some of you guys away, his consistency all season largely outweighs that factor. Matthew Stafford has caught fire like he wasn't looking down in the nether in Minecraft. Top 8 quarterback in 3 straight games. Quarterback 2 last week in Santa Clara. 24 of 36 for 280 yards and 4 touchdowns. Over the last 3 weeks, he has thrown 13 total touchdowns with 0 interceptions. The Seahawks are the 14th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. And while I do love the Seahawks defense, I expect Stafford to kick their teeth in and leave them looking like Michael Strahan. I got him as a mid-range must-start quarterback number 1. Now we got the San Francisco 49ers at the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I believe that Mac Jones will start again here. The most recent report from ESPN's Nick Wagner is that he believes it's clear the 49ers don't intend to make Purdy active again until he's healthy enough to reclaim his starting job. And with everything that Kyle Shanahan has said as well, that would make perfect sense. I like Mac Jones, and we have seen some real highs this season out of Mac Jones, like last week up against the Rams, where they got absolutely fucked, but he was 33 of 39 for 319 yards and 3 touchdowns with 1 INT, as well as 1 rush for 3 yards. But there have also been some real low lows, and in the 27th best matchup for quarterbacks, I feel like this is one of the low kind of games. Now, despite the Cardinals getting a train ran on them by the Seahawks last week in Seattle, and even with Jacoby fumbling twice, leading to 2 touchdowns for the Seahawks defense, he was still the quarterback 10. 22 of 44 throwing the football, which was coincidentally, I was going to say consistently, coincidentally, you guys ever have any of those words that you just can't say? Coincidentally, he had the same amount of, 22 to 44. That was the score of the game, right? 22 to 44, 258 passing yards, 2 touchdowns with 4 rushes for 31 yards. He has been a top 12 quarterback in all 4 starts as the Cardinals quarterback 1. So in the 12th best matchup for quarterbacks up against the 49ers, Jacoby is a low-end quarterback number 1 for me. Moving now to the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. I'm sorry, Lamar Jackson. Ooh, I am for real. Has looked solid ever since returning over the last 2 weeks. Last week in Minnesota, quarterback 15 with 17 completions on 29 attempts for 176 yards and a touchdown with 9 rushes for 36 yards of the QB 15. He obviously ripped the Dolphins a new asshole on Thursday Night Football the week prior to that. While facing the Browns, the 5th worst matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis, Lamar Jackson carved them up like Ghostface back in week number 2 as the quarterback number 3, so he's a must-start top 5 quarterback for me. Dillon Gabriel had a rare good game against the Jets last week in MetLife, 17 of 32 for 167 yards and 2 touchdowns with 5 rushes for 54 yards. We have now seen a sample size of 5 starts, and he has just one top 12 finish with 2 of 5 games with under 10 fantasy points. I know the Ravens are the 9th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis, but at the end of the day, the Ravens defense has looked far better recently, and Dillon Gabriel is as trustworthy as an ad on the hub that tells you a hot MILF nearby wants to bang, so I'm not touching him with a 10-foot pole. Now we move to the Kansas City Chiefs at the Denver Broncos. Now before the bye in week number 9 at Buffalo, Patrick Mahomes had his worst game of the season as the quarterback 22 with 15 completions on 34 attempts for 250 yards and a pick with 1 rush for 5 yards. In the 5 games prior to that, he was a top 5 quarterback in all games and has been a top 6 quarterback in 7 of 9 games this season. This is a brutal matchup up against the Broncos, who allow the 31st most points to quarterbacks on a per game basis. Last time he played up against the Broncos, I understand the defense a little bit different, but the Denver Broncos defense was great last year and he was the quarterback 11. He didn't play in week 18 because they were already in the playoffs. They didn't need to win that game up against the Broncos. That was a Carson Wentz game. So I don't really think you're going to sit him. I get the matchup might send shivers down your spine, but at the end of the day, you're playing him as a mid-range quarterback 1. Bo Nix has been hot and cold all season. Most recently, he was on fire for, a few game stretch. And then last week, that flame was extinguished by the Las Vegas Raiders in a game where I fully expect Bo Nix to finish as a high-end option. He ended up screwing the pooch as the quarterback 25, going 16 of 28 for 150 yards and 1 touchdown with 2 interceptions. The matchup is a solid enough here. It's the 21st best matchup. Not something you're writing home to your mom about. It's okay enough. He feels fine as like a quarterback 16 through 18. Not a guy that you truly love this week. Now we got the Detroit Lions at the Philadelphia Eagles on because you waited all day for Sunday night. Now, everything I've said about Jared Goff all year continues to be the case. When you are in an offense like the Lions, Jared Goff, this is just like what we talked about with Jordan Love. Jared Goff has all of the weapons at his disposal, which is a little bit different to Jordan Love, but he doesn't need to throw for 300 plus yards and 3+ touchdowns most weeks to win when you have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs and a defense that could really show up. Now, last week, he unloaded the clip on the Commanders as the quarterback 5 with 25 completions on 33 attempts for 320 yards and 3 touchdowns. Back-to-back games with 19 plus fantasy points. And in last week's game, Dan Campbell took over the play calling. So if Dan is calling the plays, maybe Jared Goff becomes a guy that's more than just like a high-end quarterback to start. But after just one game with Dan Campbell making the calls, I don't think you should just instantly come to that conclusion. The Eagles are the 22nd best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis, so I got him as a high-end quarterback too. Jalen, stop! It hurts! Struggled in the snooze fest that was Monday Night Football in Lambeau up against the Packers. Quarterback 19 with 15 completions on 26 attempts for 183 yards and a touchdown, 5 rushes for 27 yards. Prior to the bye, he was a top 8 quarterback in 3 straight games. The Lions are the 11th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis, so while Jalen Hurts may have put a hurting on you last week, he is a must-start top 5 option this week. Final game here, Monday Night Football, the Dallas Cowboys at the Las Vegas Raiders. Dak Prescott has been on the struggle bus over the last 2 weeks prior to the bye. Quarterback 22 in Denver, and the quarterback 18 against the Cardinals. Last time out against the Cards in prime time, 24 of 39 for 250 yards and a touchdown with 1 INT as well as 4 rushes for 34 yards. The Raiders are the 19th best matchup for quarterbacks, so while Bo Nix was also on the struggle bus last week against them, that is a division rivalry game. I would expect Dak Prescott to look much better as a top 6 must-start quarterback. 5 of 9 games inside the top 10. Loaded wide receiver core. You gotta rock with him this week. Geno Smith, I understand that the Dallas Cowboys are the best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis, and I am the first one that bangs the drum every week. Any fucking scrub could go up against the Dallas Cowboys and hit him from the back how you like that, but trusting Geno Smith is impossible. We have seen him in good matchups before, and he has completely shit the bed. Quarterback 27 last week with 16 completions on 26 attempts, 443 yards, and a INT up against the Broncos in a game where he suffered a quad contusion. No one would have expected him to play good against the Broncos, and obviously he didn't. But he did return in that game, so his health should be all good. I understand back in week 9 up against the Jaguars, he was the quarterback 6, but a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. 5 of 9 games with under 10 fantasy points, which is difficult to do as a quarterback. Especially a quarterback that isn't getting pulled out of games. I get that this could be a big game, but how in the actual fuck can you actually trust him? He is a sit for me. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying today's video, make sure you guys do hit that subscribe button down below if you are new. Check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. Love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great one. And as always, good boy. Check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. Good boy.